I think, as you all know, we've got a legislative session starting January 4th. It's going to be a completely new mix of people coming to Helena, Montana. New directors, new governor, stronger majorities in the House and the Senate. And so it'll be interesting to see how the various factions in the Republican and Democratic Party work themselves out. All we can do right now is kind of guess as to how those dynamics may play out. But nonetheless, cities, counties, local government still have vested interests. We have risk and we have opportunity. What we've been focused on mostly for the last couple of weeks is how will the session work in the middle of a worldwide pandemic? And I think some of you probably followed the Democrat and Republican caucuses. This week, the Rules Committee met a couple of times to put together the rules on how the legislative session will operate. Final decisions have not been made yet and really can't be made until they actually gavel in where the new leadership and the new legislators are actually sworn in so that they can officially make decisions on how it will operate. It's certainly not going to operate in a way that we're used to, where the Capitol's wide open and everybody convenes within the building. And there are some challenges based upon the discussions that have taken place to date. The draft rules right now allow for full in-person participation at the Capitol. But it all doesn't require social distancing. It doesn't require masks. It doesn't require taking people's temperature. And that's, as you all know in your own communities, that's a problem. When right now we're at the highest infection rate in the pandemic in Montana. And what further complicates that to some degree, especially from our point of view, is we have the mayor of East Helena, the mayor of Helena, in each commission. We have the public health officer in Lewis and Clark County, the Board of Health in Lewis and Clark County, and the Lewis and Clark County Commission, all requesting that at this point in time for our community, they've requested that the legislature operate virtually. The draft rules allow for virtual participation from both legislators who have potential family members at home at risk, or even lobbyists that have family members at home at risk. So how we're able to engage is still up in the air. Clearly, we don't want to put our people at risk. So we'll just have to monitor this discussion and adjust to it as it develops and matures. Clearly, there are issues that come at us all the time. There's an awful lot of talk about property tax reductions. And as you know, local government represents probably about 90%, receives about 90% of total property taxes through the system. And at the same time, we visited with the Lieutenant Governor-elect yesterday through the Montax meeting. And the leadership, the majority and minority leader in the Senate, and the Speaker and the minority leader in the House, about some of the policy issues that they're going to be proceeding on, and made it clear that if you touch one thing in property taxes, it affects another. And how do we provide property tax reduction without harming cities and towns and counties throughout Montana? So that'll be a big issue. We talked about the entitlement share. As you know, the tax increment finance authorities have been under assault. We expect that they'll try to loosen the requirements on exempt water wells, which up to this point does not provide protection for senior water right holders, which are typically municipalities and agricultural operations throughout Montana. So we'll have a number of issues coming our way. There will be a lot of people in the building who have been trying to accomplish policy goals over the last 16 years. And now that the House and the Senate and the governor's office are all Republican led, they see opportunities to bring those policy positions forward that they haven't been able to get across the finish line for at least the last 16 years. So it's going to be a new dynamic. We're going to need your help as much as we always do. And I think we've got a good structure in place that we've been building on the last couple of sessions. And so I'd like to take this opportunity this morning to have Kelly and Amanda talk about how the mechanics of that will work. And as you all know, those folks see Kelly and I all the time. It makes a big difference when they hear from our mayors and city managers to talk about critical policy issues and how it affects their community. You know and live with these people. And so we're going to have to, I think, this session, rely on your involvement, whether it's remote or through letters or, if possible, in-person testimony to collectively further our opportunities and to try and protect where we're at risk. So with that, I would turn it over to Kelly Lynch and Amanda to talk about the mechanics on how we're going to structure this and work with you all throughout the session so that you can play an active role with not only your local legislators, but other people that you know who will be taking votes throughout the session. So with that, Kelly, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for being late. Are you one of those people that leaves your computer on for days and days on end and never restarts it? And then all of a sudden, right when you're trying to get on, it's like, no, I'm done. Got to restart. So sorry about that. I think Ashley or Amanda or I able to share our screen?
Yes, you should be able to. At the bottom of the screen, do you see the share button?
There
There's
go.
Amanda. Perfect.
Excellent. So you guys will probably remember, if you were involved at all in the 2019 legislative session, we started using a new system called Engagify. It's also referred to as Crescerence. They do our database, but they also do a legislative tracking piece for us. This is the same system that the Wyoming State League uses. And I think it's really great. It's great on our end because it allows me to get you guys information really quickly and have a place to kind of keep everything organized and categorized, and you can find stuff quickly. It's great for you because you can get that communication that you need really quickly and easily. So you probably saw an email that came out, 2 weeks ago, Amanda, maybe? You're muted.
There we go. Sorry, I have a lot of windows open now to be sharing my screen. I couldn't find it. Yeah, we sent it out in a bulletin a couple weeks ago, and then another reminder, and then I think another bulletin just this week to have you identify who your sort of people that are ready to take action for the legislature.
And I think we've gotten over 60 responses to that. So that's fantastic. And essentially what that allows us to do is create a list in this system where we can send you information related to anything legislative. And then you guys can kind of get that quickly to the people who can take the action that we're asking to be taken. Tim mentioned that the legislators love to hear from you guys. We can give them the details and the background, but they really do like to have those local stories and make sure that they're making the right decision locally. So hearing from you is critical for them. So we thought at the end of the last session that we were going to be moving to an updated version of this software program by this legislative session, and that we would be using that and training you on the new one. Well, it turns out that the new one didn't happen until about sometime late summer. And then it doesn't have some of the database stuff that we wanted. So instead of moving to the new system with very little time left for this session, we decided to stay with the old system. And then after the session's over, we'll make a determination if we want to upgrade to their new system or maybe start looking at other systems. So it's not going to change. The good news is it's not going to change from the last session. So if you used it at all, it's the same as it was then. You are looking at the 2019 page at this point. They are working on moving us up to the 2020 page. One of the drawbacks of this system is that it does not track or pull. So typically, let me back up a little bit. It pulls from the laws system, and I can share my screen as well to show you. Let's see if I could. Well, we'll stay on this one and I'll show you that one in a second. But the law system is the legislative services one on the legislative website that you can track bills. You can create your own tracking list on their site, and you can do what I'm doing essentially in laws for us right now. So if you would go down and click on the, no, not there, a little bit further down, the list all introduced and unintroduced bills. Yeah. So if you go to this page, these are all of what we call the LCs. These are all of the draft bill requests that have been received to date from all legislators. And if you just scroll down to the bottom, you'll see there's about over 1,800, maybe coming up on 1,900 this morning of draft bills. Up until I think it was December 5th, legislators who were carryovers had an unlimited number of bills that they could put in the hopper. And so it slows down quite a bit after that. And then if you want to just scroll down a little bit to where some of them have a PDF link to the LC. There you go. So you'll see on the left here that when staff starts to draft in the system, they will have the first draft will go up and you can actually click on it and read it. And then from that point forward, you will be able to see the latest version in the system. And so for most of these right now, there are no drafts. And you can see that when they are drafts, it's interim committees because they get first place in the hopper for bill drafting from legislative services. So basically staff is required to assist them first, get their drafts done, get their drafts up and ready, and then they can turn to the other requests pretty much in order of when they come in. So that's kind of the quick overview of how this works. So what I do is I go through this list and I pick, and if you go back to our Engagify. So I go back, I take that list and I track because this software program does not pull the LCs, the bill draft requests. It only pulls bills into the system once they're introduced. So I'm kind of doing that back end tracking right now of the drafts. Once a bill is introduced, it'll go into our system and you'll be able to see it. And then once what I do is I go through that whole list pretty much every day, every 2 days right now, and I check to find anything that's related, could possibly be related to us. At this point, I'm tracking about 550 bills, bill draft requests. And that's because a lot of them are just titles, right? They don't have a bill. So I can't tell if it's going to affect us. So it's like generally revised local government laws. Okay. We'll just have to wait and see what that is. Some of them are pretty specific. The reason of the differences in those titles is because if you do something with the magic words generally revise, it means it gives you a lot of flexibility as a sponsor to put in pretty much any kind of thing, even tangentially related to that topic, into that bill. If you have a specific title, you can only do amendments that are related specifically to that title. And that's usually that provision of the statute. The difference is that when you're very specific, you can keep people from fiddling with your bill. Because if that title is tight, other people can't get in there and fiddle with it. If it says generally revised, pretty much anyone can hijack your bill. So there's some pros and cons to each, but that's what those magic words mean. So then what I do is I take all of those, or all of them that I can tell what the topic is, and I put them in the middle there. Do you see our policy areas listed? I essentially put them into these policy areas. The only name on here that I've changed for the 2021 session is Colstrip related, because we kind of opened that up, if you'll recall, in our resolution to be resource related communities. I can't remember what I called it, but natural resource communities, because we made that resolution to not just be support for Colstrip, but for any community that deals with fluctuations in natural resource extraction. But I will put all of our potential related bills into those categories. And so you can go into the system, you can search by policy areas, and you'll see an entire list of that. You could search by a bill number on the left there if you're looking for something very specific. And then on the right, you can search by tracking level, which we do when it goes into the system. We will immediately notate it with one of the first three boxes there. Either we're in support of it, we oppose it, or we're not taking a stand on it, but it might affect us with an amendment, or it might be something we just want to make sure that we know how to comply with it. That will be a monitor. As we move through the session, those tracking levels will change on bills. If something is tabled in committee, if something is passed to the governor's office, and if something otherwise dies on the floor, doesn't get introduced, you'll see it move to the dead and past categories. And then we keep the tag of whether or not we supported it or opposed it. So when we run that, we'll run an interim report at transmittal, which is, in a normal world. And I assume Tim covered that we don't really know at this point what that's going to look like. But in a normal session at transmittal, which is about end of February, we will do a report, and she's pulling that up right now. We just basically pull this report from the data in the database, and it runs it based on all of those categories. So you can continue to see whether or not, if it's good, if we oppose something and it's dead, that means it's a win for us. If we supported something and it passed, that means it's a win for us. So you can kind of track how we're doing. And then obviously we'll do the final report, and that's the one that she was showing has been up on our website. We'll probably take that down when we get close to the beginning of the session. So
I think also just a quick thing, Kelly, if you're looking for how to get to all of this, you can just go to mtleague.org. And then up here in the legislature tab, there's the final legislative report that we were just showing you if you kind of want to see what went on last year. And then legislative tracker is where I was. That's this guy. So if you want to click on that. And then there's also a couple of quick legislative tracker tutorials. So if you're wanting some information on how to use that legislative tracker, then you'll want to go over there.
And you can call us too, Sandy, Amanda, Tim, and I have a pretty good sense of how to get around in here. I would say Amanda and Sandy are the best, but Tim and I can help you as well. Then this is on the flip side, this is also a communication device. So we can run in this system communication blasts to you that let you know when a particular bill needs your help. And so I think if you sat in on any of our trainings at the end of the last session, we kind of showed you, when we did blasts, how many people opened the emails, who responded, and I'll have Amanda kind of walk through how those emails work. But we can see who's having an impact and who you are connecting with at the legislature. So then we can follow up with those particular legislators, talk to them about their potential vote, who they heard from, what kind of effect it had on them. And it had a huge impact. And we were barely using this. We really only used it for a couple of the major entitlement share issues at the end of the session. Part of that was because we were trying to get used to how to work this thing. But another part was that well, I think it was just mostly we're trying to get used to how this thing worked. So we had you connect. We connected with you through this system to have you reach out on entitlement share, and it had a huge impact. So having all of you and all of the counties at the same time connecting with their legislators, pushing hard against taking the entitlement share, resulted in them killing it on the floor by a major majority. So it was pretty interesting for Tim and I to sit up there and watch it happening in real time, what impact you guys had on those legislators. It's really powerful. And we couldn't do it without you. So really hope that you kind of stay engaged through this system. We've had over 60 of you already respond to that email. And essentially that allows us to have those communications directly with the right person in your shop to be able to reach out. Some of the feedback we got from people was you sending it to the clerk can't respond to a legislator. We haven't had those discussions, or the clerk was, felt that she couldn't respond. And so we were encouraging you, and I continue to encourage you if you haven't done it yet, to have those conversations internally about who is the right person, who's going to have the authority to respond to our emails, to email legislators directly, to call legislators directly, to have those discussions. If it's not your clerk, if it's not your mayor, if you have particular staff in addition to you who you'd like to talk about or like to get information out because they can talk to specific issues such as infrastructure or public safety, any of those issues, then let us know. And that's kind of what that email list is intended to do. So and just be random emails.
From a kind of a technical side, I brought up just one example of an email we sent last legislative session. They're going to come into you from this MLCT@ciclt.net. So that's this system. That's the system we've been talking about that we do all of this tracking and work in. So you might see it come from my name or Kelly's name or Tim's name, and then the email address itself will be this. To the people who put their name or put someone's name on the list of who wants to receive these emails, we're going to here pretty soon be sending out an email from Outlook to you guys to let you know how to make sure that you receive these ciclt.net emails. They may end up in your junk mail if you haven't already marked them as safe. So we're going to go through a little process. If your name is on our list, that you filled out that survey and your name is one of the people who wants to receive these and take action, we're going to make sure you know how to get these emails out of the system. So, and then you'll just get these emails, and usually the email itself will be very short and sweet. It'll tell you what we're wanting you to support. It might give you information on when a hearing is coming up. Very likely, it sounds like, if we do a hybrid type of session, all of those meetings are going to be viewable online as well. So we'll probably give you links on how to get in and view those. Sure. And then there will be some sort of call to action. Sometimes we might be telling you to call your legislator or email your legislator. This one is a dead campaign right now. So if you click on this, nothing really happens. But if it was an active campaign, you would click here to email your legislator, and it would take you to our system with a pre-written email where, you know, we already kind of laid out the points we want you to make. You can add your signature and then just hit a button and it'll send it to the legislators we want it to go to. So sometimes that may be your legislator from your district. Sometimes it may be all the legislators in a certain committee. You know, sometimes it might be to all the legislators in the House. So it just depends on what the issue is, where it is in the process of the legislature. So we kind of set it up so that it's very easy for you to go in there, send it from yourself to the right people. We always also strongly encourage you to add or change that email to make it custom to you and your city or town. So, you know, we have that kind of pre-drafted email that we'll have ready for you. But if you want to add in there, you know, a story or an anecdote or more information that you think is important for your legislators to know, we always encourage you to do that. And then we'll be able to see who took action, how many folks sent emails to legislators. And, you know, sometimes we'll send an email to mayors to, you know, have them engage in a campaign to contact all the legislators in this committee. Sometimes we'll send an email to everyone in, you know, to many people in the city and town and ask them all to contact all their legislators. So we really are thinking carefully through who needs to be reached out to and who needs to be doing the reaching out. So, you know, if you get one of these emails, it means, hey, we really, really need you to take that action right away. And stuff moves so fast. And I know Kelly said that, and we can't emphasize that enough. Sometimes we'll send this out in the morning and we need you to take that action before noon, you know, and we'll say that in there and you'll get these big urgent things, but we're trying to make it really easy, short and sweet, so that it's easy for you to just click and take action or click and then call. We'll also be providing you with phone numbers if we want you to do some calling. So
there's some other back-end stuff that's available in this system as well. There is basically a commenting component to it where I can make notes to Tim or he can make notes to me about what is happening on a particular bill. Those comments are not visible by anybody except Tim and I think maybe Sandy and Amanda. It's really just to help us when we're going through here and kind of remembering what's happening on a bill. But one of the cool things is you can also sign into the system and send me comments or notes about a particular bill. So let's say you hear about a particular bill, you hear your legislator says something about it, or you just happen to notice something about it. I've got a lot of you tracking these things and you sometimes find out about stuff before I do. You can send me a note in the system on that bill that no one else can read. So it will just come to me and then I can take that information and do what we need to do with it. So that's really helpful too, if you do hear that information. Another thing that's really helpful is if you have personal relationships with any of these legislators, that you feel like you can call on them to have a talk, either face-to-face, with masks, 6 feet apart, of course, but either, by texting, maybe this is a friend of yours from high school. Maybe this is somebody you used to work with. If you have those kind of relationships, that's something we can also put into the system so that we know, hey, if we really want to push on Blaisdell about something and we want to give him some information, the Senate president, we know there are a couple of people in Kalispell who are in our membership who have really good relationships with him, who can reach out to him personally, and he will really listen to them because they know each other very well. So that kind of stuff is helpful too. I don't know about those relationships until you tell me. So that's something that's helpful and we can stick in here as well. Anything else, Amanda?
No, as far as the logging in, we'll take that list and we'll make sure we get folks logins. And then again, those short tutorial videos will show you very easily how to, get logged in, how to enter any relationships that you have, how to send messages to Kelly, all those kind of back end things. It's pretty simple. It looks very similar on the back end to what we showed you when you just go there from the league website. So anybody can go on the league website without a login and see what we showed you today. See the bills we're tracking, see if we oppose or support. All of that stuff is going to be available to anybody without being logged in. And then there's just some extra if you do have a login. So we'll be working on getting folks logins here as we finish up that list.
So Amanda showed you laws, and actually, now that I'm thinking about it, Amanda, we might want to put just a link to laws in our legislative resources.
Yep.
Some people like doing that, and you can create your own list in there too if you have particular bills you want to follow. I'm going to share my screen real quick because I just want to show you something else that I have put together. Can you see that? Excel spreadsheet. So this is a spreadsheet that I put together about this time every 2 years, and each of my tabs basically tracks the legislators. So these yellow highlights are people who are new legislators. This year they just are elected. And I run all of our member cities here on the left. And then for each one, I know exactly who represents you. So if you ever have any questions about who your representative is or who to reach out to, you know, even if they're not particularly your district or in your personal district or in the district for where your building is, that was something we had to work out through this system was, you know, your address, your GPS code was coding to your just where the building was. And so it was missing out on, like, let's say Billings, it was missing out on all the other legislators because it really was kind of set up in a more of a personal way. So I can get you these names and information. If I ever have an issue come up, like let's say Anaconda calls me and says, we've really got a problem with this. I need a fix, or I need someone to help out. I can go to those legislators who are specifically invested in that area to kind of start the conversation about what the issue is and how to get a hold of them. Then I can go to my second tab, which is I have all now the legislator. It's done by alphabetical by legislator, and then it shows what cities they're in. So if I'm in a committee hearing and Dwayne Ankeny, God bless him because he never does this, but if he's giving me a hard time about something and he's really drilling me and he doesn't believe what I'm saying, and he's blowing me off, I can reach out to I can look in here and say, okay, what communities does he represent? And then I can reach out to you guys specifically and say, hey, I'm having some trouble getting Ankeny to understand what I'm talking about here. Can you guys reach out to him and talk to him about your specific stories about this issue? So this is just for me, but I just wanted to show you that I do have this data available. So if you're like, you know, what committee is this person in, or you can't find that information, I have it as well. Of course, you can also find this on the legislative website, but it's a little harder to know exactly. There's like a map. You kind of have to do all this work, and this takes me a while to do this, and it's so that I don't have to recreate that system every time, go into that map and figure out what towns, because you'll see some of the towns are cut in half. Cut Bank's a good example. Half the town is represented by one district and half the town's represented by another. And so you have to kind of go in there and see the line of the town and figure out who it is. So I've done all that. And then I keep track of what committees they're in and if they're in any kind of leadership here. So if you have any questions about that, we have that information as well. And Amanda and Pam and Sandy all have that information as well. And we've got their emails and their phone numbers and everything. So I will stop sharing if I can figure out how to do that.
Kelly, at the top of your screen, if you hover, it should bring a bar down for you, and it should have a stop sharing option up there.
Oh yeah, the big orange one that is screaming at me.
That one there, yeah.
Okay, so I guess any questions, you guys?
And if you're on the phone and you would like to ask a question, you can unmute by pressing *6 on your keypad. That'll unmute you. Or you can raise your hand by pressing *3.
And it looks like Amanda has put the link to the all introduced and unintroduced bills list. As bills start to be introduced, you'll still find them on that list. They'll just all pop to the top, and then they'll run by their introduced number. They won't run by their LC number anymore, so just be aware of that. And I asked him the other day, because I strangely don't know the actual answer to this question, is whether or not they can introduce bills before the session starts. And I think we collectively decided the answer was no, but I'll be watching to see if that's something that happens. I think they have to gavel in, and they'll gavel in, I don't know if Tim mentioned this, on January 7th at noon. At least what we know right now. All right, well, you know me, I could talk about this literally all day and you would all be sleeping. So if no questions, I will leave it at that.
That's
Yeah.
great. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, thank you, Dan. Just want to reiterate that please visit with your mayor, your city council, and to the best of your ability, identify the contact person that we will use that will either bring forth the information we send out to the mayor and council, or has authority delegated to them to respond to the requests that we're making. Time is of the essence when these things are going on. And again, I just can't say enough how important it is that our local leaders are engaged with your representatives and senators. It just makes all the difference in the world when we're trying to enhance our agenda or protect your existing authorities. If you've done that, thank you. If you haven't, please consider that in the next couple of weeks because it's really just critically important.
I do have two more quick things. The first thing is, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but if you use the email system to reach out to a legislator, it tells us that you've done that.
Yes.
What it doesn't tell us is if you get our email and you know the person, or you have some other way of connecting with them, you happen to run into them at the grocery store, whatever it is, we don't know that that's happened. So it's very helpful for us if you just shoot us a note to tell us that you've had that interaction with them, and any response you got, if you can let us know that as well. Can they send us an email in the system to tell us that, like a random email in the system?
No, I don't believe so. They can use the little note function, but if you just want to toss it out as a quick email, a regular Outlook style email to Kelly or Pam or Sandy or myself or Tim, we'll make sure it gets in where it needs to go.
Or just, you've always got my cell phone number is 465-5711. You can text me, and we'll just make sure we know. And then the other thing I wanted to let you know, which is completely unrelated to this, because Tim, you didn't talk about Barca, did you?
No, Kelly, I was leaving that up to you.
Yeah, I almost forgot, but we have great news on gas tax. Last spring, we thought that we were going to be facing almost a 50% drop in gas tax collections this year due to COVID and the impositions on travel. But it turns out that it looks like at this point, we are seeing about 95% collections from what you got this year. So you will see a bit of a drop, but not much at all. And so that's great news. This will be the last month of collections, but they won't get those numbers in until next month because everything lags by a month with the distributors and the payment and the collections. But if I recall, you'll get those final numbers sometime end of January, beginning of February, and you'll be able to start requesting those on March 1st. So yeah, that's like the best news out of 2020.
It's not a super high bar, but that is exciting news.
Right? Well, it's not murder hornets, so there you go.
Oh. Kelly, Tim, do you guys mind if I throw in while people have a few minutes here? I want to make sure people have a chance to think of any questions they might have for you, but I also want to put a plug in for the online course that we're running again. So do you have anything else that you want to touch on before I show that real quick?
No, I think our stuff's been covered, Ashley.
Okay. All right. Well, so I want to show you guys real quick that this is up again. I'm just going to pull up my screen, but I also want you, if you have any questions for Tim or Kelly about the session, about anything, make sure to throw it in the chat box or get your hand up. I mean, these sessions are great for having access to the people and the resources that support local government. So use that opportunity well. All right. So you may have seen the email go out on the listserv that we are running our Fundamentals of Montana Municipal Government course again this January. I just wanted to draw your attention to it. If you haven't taken it, it's definitely worth looking at. I know there's lots of folks on the call who have, and I think they'd be happy to let you know what their experience was if you're interested. But it's going to run from January 11th to February 23rd. It's a 6-week course. We take the Montana Municipal Officials Handbook that we have several authors of on the call right now. Break it into six units. We do 1 unit per week. It's mostly asynchronous, which means that you can log on to the course anytime throughout the week, do your reading, your quiz, and your discussion posts, and have it all done by the deadline, which is the following Tuesday. So it's really flexible, built around your schedule. And the point of the course is to really help familiarize the local or the municipal officials with the handbook, with the guidelines, with all of the best practices that are out there. So it's $25. It's a pretty low commitment course in terms of time, probably 2 or 3 hours a week. But we've seen some really great responses. So if you have questions about it, let me know. I had a request. Somebody asked if it is eligible for CLEAS. It currently is not, but I will be happy to look into that. So I'm going to work through that request. If it does end up being eligible, I will send information out on the listservs. But just wanted to throw that out there. All right, let me go back and see if we have any questions.
I have a question, and it takes me too long to type it. So, can anyone take this course? They don't have to be a municipal. Okay.
No, anyone can take this course. It is geared towards the elected and appointed officials, but we've had some MMIA folks in the past take it, which is awesome because then we get to share some of what we're doing. But the really valuable thing then is we're getting the perspective of the folks that are helping and supporting these communities, in addition to the elected officials, the appointed officials. So it really does make for a really kind of interesting conversation online.
Okay, thanks.
Ashley, this is Tim. Amanda, could you speak about the next 2 town hall meetings that we're scheduling and what the topics would be for those?
Yes, I can. I was just thinking about that. The next town hall meeting is going to be January 8th. And at that meeting, we're going to have, the plan is to be talking with the Small Business Association.
Administration.
Small Business Administration. Tim, do you want to go into a little detail about what the plan is for that conversation?
Yes, the U.S. Small Business Administration reached out to us on how to effectively engage the cities and towns throughout Montana. As you know, there's been a lot of economic impact because of the pandemic with Main Street Montana, your main streets, and what resources are available to assist these businesses within your community. The Small Business Administration is going to be joined by several members of the Montana Economic Development Association, which you have representatives in many of your communities, if not in your communities, at least regionally. And so these folks want to talk to you about what resources are available at the state and federal level to assist those stressed businesses within your communities.
Thanks, Tim. And then the one after that, we're kind of going to once a month, and it's the second Friday of the month, it seems like, is kind of the day we're hitting on. So the next planned presentation is February 12th, and same time, same place. And that is going to be a conversation with the AARP about the Livable Communities program, which we know we've kind of been, giving you guys little nibbles of information on that here and there. And so we really wanted to take some time to dive in and really connect you with the AARP Montana folks on the Livable Communities program. So we'll be sending those invites out here very soon. So just keep an eye out, and we'll do reminders, and excited to have you guys on.
Thanks, Amanda.
So this is Dan, and I think I'll just throw out there, since we've been talking about the legislative session, I'll give you a little bit of an update about the local government interim committee reached out to the local government center a little over a year ago, and interested in learning more about what the center does, how we support local governments, how we interact and partner with the other associations and with state government. And so we've had ongoing conversations with that committee over the past year, and they've asked us to present a proposal to them for additional funding so that we could expand our services in the service of the local governments. And so we worked with our advisory committee and came up with a proposed amount of money that could be appropriated to the center to increase the number of staff we have to support our mission. And in working with the interim committee, we came up with a number of $180,000 is what the request is going to be. So if you're looking at bill drafts, it's LC 0354 is the bill draft for funding for the local government center. So I'm sure Kelly and Tim will keep you posted as that moves through the system. But I just want to let you know that that's out there. And with that, we were hoping to likely hire 2 more people like Ashley. I don't know if we'll find people as good as Ashley, but people nonetheless like Ashley that we can bring onto our team that can expand our support to you, provide additional training, more online training programs and opportunities, in-person training, and then maybe some back office kind of support for you around the technical assistance side. So we're excited for this opportunity and this partnership we have with the interim committee in trying to figure out ways to increase the support for the local governments, for cities, counties, special districts. So I just thought I would update you on that if you wanted to look at that bill. Again, it's LC 0354 is the bill draft. I don't know if Tim or Kelly, if you want to make any comments on that at all, but.
Tim, you're on mute.
Thanks, Ashley. I think you'll all recall that some sessions ago, the center was funded every 2 years on a one-time basis. We were able to move that forward to a degree. But since the local government interim committee has been created in a large part by your push, the last 2 years, the center's been on the agenda, or the last 2 interims, and particularly this interim, where we actually got Dan's advisory committee together, looked at the level of service we're at and where we need to be or should be, and actually make a proposal to the interim committee. They took the whole interim to digest this and actually came out with this recommendation. And I think it would provide a level of service to our cities and towns that would be well used and much appreciated. So yeah, obviously we're in full support of this bill. I think you're muted, Dan.
Yeah, thanks, Tim, for adding a little bit more context to that conversation that we've been having. It's and we appreciate the support that we've had from the League of Cities and Towns and the Montana Association of Counties, and for all of you that have been kind of speaking up on our behalf. So we appreciate that support. So with that, is there any other questions or any other issues that you'd like to bring up? We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left on our hour time here. Anything else that you feel would be worthwhile for this group to think about or share? Comments you might have? All right. So the rule is, if I don't hear anything for 8 seconds, then the assumption is we're moving on. So there was I don't see any hands raised or any comments in the chat.
I had a quiet bunch this morning.
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Go ahead.
I guess I don't have a question. I forgot.
We were so excited for a question.
I know.
We must be
All right.
related.
It's important too. I'll remember it. I'll come back on.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. So yeah, and I guess the next session is going to be the 8th of January, if I recall. Is that when we're going to have the SBA speaking? And so that'll be one you'll want to keep on your calendars and watch your e-invites that come out on that. All right. Well, I don't see anything else unless there's somebody else has a question or comment.
I have one that came in, Dan. It says, is there any new information on the final CARES Act reimbursement?
There's not any new information. As you know, they took the 4th submittal in terms of presumptive salaries off because the money is just no longer available. For critical public health services in cities and counties, they're still leaving that open. But even if you've not submitted, and from March 12th through the end of October, you still have the opportunity to put that submittal forward. So those eligible reimbursements are available through the end of October, so you can update on this final draw what you're eligible to receive.
And when's the deadline for that, Tim?
I don't recall. Do you, Kelly?
Yeah, it's going to be January 11th. I guess I would put a plug in for those communities that have not yet put in for any reimbursement, particularly if you have any kind of fire or police payroll or stipend that you pay. Reach out to Tim or I, and we can talk to you about what's available and pros and cons.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
That was our one question.
It was a good question. Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't see any other hands or questions unless you're getting in something straight to you, or Ashley. Okay.
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone, for joining us.
Everybody.
Had a great group. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks or after the holidays. Stay safe.